The courtroom was silent, the air thick with tension. A billionaire's voice thundered across the room, accusing his maid of harming his own son. Shock rippled through the spectators. How could this woman, humble and devoted, commit such a crime? Every eye was fixed on the child trembling in the center of the storm. But then, in a voice that carried innocence and courage, the boy spoke words no one expected, words that pierced through the layers of wealth, power, and prejudice, leaving the room stunned. In that moment, the truth hovered on a knife's edge, and a single revelation had the power to shatter lives, and the very idea of justice itself. The maid, a soft-spoken woman named Angela, had worked in the billionaire's mansion for nearly a decade. She carried herself with quiet dignity, her hands roughened by years of hard work, yet always moving with care. Every corner of the sprawling estate bore the mark of her labor: polished floors, meticulously arranged rooms, and a garden that seemed almost to bloom with gratitude. Despite her dedication, whispers and sideways glances from staff hinted at the subtle prejudices she faced daily. Angela was more than a housekeeper. She was the unseen heartbeat of the household, yet she remained invisible to the world that mattered most. The billionaire, a man accustomed to absolute control, wielded power with an unforgiving hand. He measured loyalty by wealth and status, and to him, Angela's presence was tolerated at best, disposable at worst. Yet his young son, little James, had grown fond of her, trusting her in a way no one else could reach. Their bond, quiet and unnoticed by most, was a fragile shield against the cold, demanding world of privilege. Then came the day that changed everything. A minor accident, a misunderstanding, a slip of the hand, whatever it was magnified into a catastrophe by fear, anger, and prejudice. Angela found herself accused of a crime she had never dreamed of committing, standing alone against a wall of power and expectation. And in the center of it all was James, caught between the worlds of innocence and the harsh, unforgiving judgment of adults who saw only color and status, not truth or love. The accusations spread through the mansion like wildfire. Staff members who once nodded politely now cast suspicious glances at Angela, their whispers carrying the weight of assumptions and unspoken biases. Every corner seemed to conspire against her. The polished halls felt suddenly hostile. The familiar rooms of her labor turned into a stage of judgment. Despite her meticulous work, the billionaire's fury painted her as guilty before a single fact could be considered. Security footage, conveniently inconclusive, and circumstantial evidence were twisted to reinforce the narrative that Angela had harmed the boy. Outside the mansion, rumors seeped into the neighborhood. Friends and acquaintances, unsure of the truth, questioned her character. Angela felt the sting of a society ready to condemn a black woman based on appearances and status rather than reality. She had dedicated her life to this family, yet in a moment, all trust and loyalty seemed meaningless. Her heart ached not just for herself but for James, who now carried a weight too heavy for his young shoulders. Lawyers entered the fray, their polished arguments cutting through the courtroom air. The billionaire's influence loomed like a shadow over every proceeding, threatening to tilt justice in his favor. Yet in quiet moments, the boy hesitated. Memories of Angela's kindness, soft hands tying shoelaces, stories told in gentle tones, laughter shared in fleeting moments, pulled at him. He wrestled with fear and loyalty, understanding only partially the storm that had erupted around him. As the trial unfolded, the courtroom became a battleground of power and prejudice. Witnesses spoke, each statement a double-edged sword that could either condemn or exonerate. Angela's resilience shone through in small gestures, calm composure, steady eyes, unwavering dignity, but the weight of systemic bias pressed heavily, threatening to crush her spirit. Every passing hour intensified the tension, every glance and whispered comment adding fuel to a fire that seemed impossible to control. And yet beneath the fear, a quiet truth lingered, waiting for a moment when courage and innocence could collide, to reveal what everyone had failed to see. that the real crime was not the one being accused, but the blindness of those who refused to look beyond status, color, and prejudice. The courtroom was suffocating with anticipation. Every eye was fixed on little James, who sat trembling yet resolute in the center of the storm. The billionaire's gaze was cold, a mix of disbelief and rage, while Angela's calm composure radiated quiet strength. Lawyers paused, the murmurs of the crowd hushed into an almost sacred silence. The moment had arrived when innocence would confront power, when truth would pierce the veil of wealth, status, and prejudice. As James opened his mouth, the words that emerged were not those of fear or confusion, but of clarity, honesty, and unfiltered perception. He recounted the moments of kindness and care Angela had shown, the countless small gestures that proved her love and dedication. He spoke of how she had protected him, taught him lessons, and cared for him as if he were her own, leaving no room for doubt in the hearts of those willing to listen. Every sentence dismantled the walls of accusation brick by brick, each memory painting a portrait of a woman unjustly condemned. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The billionaire's posture stiffened, his face paling as the truth cut through his assumptions and rage. Staff members who had quietly supported the narrative of guilt now felt shame and disbelief, realizing how readily prejudice had clouded their judgment. Angela's eyes glistened, but her dignity remained intact, her presence commanding the room in a silence louder than any accusation. For the first time, power trembled under the weight of truth. The boy's words resonated not only with the courtroom, but with every soul witnessing the unfolding justice. In that suspended moment, the fragile line between innocence and authority, prejudice and understanding was tested. It was a turning point where courage met fear, where honesty defied oppression, and where a single child's clarity became a weapon against a lifetime of bias. The tension peaked, hearts raced, and a collective realization swept through the room. Justice, when guided by truth rather than status, could no longer be denied. The courtroom slowly exhaled as the tension dissolved into a mixture of relief, awe, and contemplation. The judge's gavel struck with authority, not just confirming Angela's innocence, but acknowledging the power of truth over prejudice. The billionaire sat stunned, forced to confront the biases that had clouded his judgment. Angela remained composed, her quiet dignity a testament to resilience in the face of injustice. Though the ordeal had been harrowing, she emerged not broken, but stronger, her integrity shining brighter than ever. Outside the courtroom, the ripple effect of the boy's words became evident. Conversations sparked about racial bias, assumptions, and the human cost of prejudice. Angela's story inspired those who had felt powerless to recognize that courage, even from the youngest among us, can dismantle false narratives and challenge systemic injustice. The boy, now celebrated not only for his innocence but for his bravery, had unknowingly become a symbol of hope, a reminder that the truth can prevail when spoken with honesty and heart. In the quiet moments after the trial, Angela returned to her life, but nothing would ever be the same. She had faced the storm of wealth, power, and prejudice and had emerged vindicated, her story leaving an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed it. The lesson was clear. Justice is not determined by status or assumptions, but by the courage to see, speak, and honor the truth. Injustice can be confronted, and even the smallest voice can shatter the loudest falsehoods. If we pause and reflect, how many Angelas remain unseen in our own communities, carrying the weight of assumptions and prejudice? How often do we judge before we understand, condemn before we listen? This story is not just a courtroom drama. It is a mirror held up to society, asking each of us to confront our biases and choose empathy over ignorance. If this story moved you, give it a like, share it with friends to spread awareness, and comment your thoughts below. Let's talk about the power of truth, courage, and standing against prejudice.